Hi guys, welcome to the Odd Unicorn podcast. There's a high chance that I left a little bit of before in.
We have to start now.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Too much fun. It's
Definitely not being held hostage.
We're just two guys with a podcast.
Quit turning the cameras off.
You
We're
can't
being
see, but my
incriminated.
hands are bound down here.
We're getting canceled. That's alright. Turn off the camera.
Yeah.
We've gone too far now, Silas.
There's no going back now.
You might as well do it for real. Actually, how's your day?
We have been very
How's my
creative.
day going? It was good until I started getting accused
The day I
for
became
federal
kidnapped.
crimes.
If we don't get at least one subscription, the little lady gets hurt.
Wait. With that being said,
Yeah. We'll never have an opener like that.
We probably
again.
got some good attention.
I hope I
today.
don't. Who knows? Maybe I'll keep this in just to spite you, Jonathan. So, we're trying to talk about how to be creative. Which is, okay, so, and what I mean by that is specifically how to use your creativity. Because, you know, like for me, I've always been interested in like photography and video. And then for you, you've always been interested in writing. But you even talked about it in the last podcast about how there was a time where you're like, oh, what am I going to use this for?
Right. Yeah. It was more of like a hobby to me.
Yeah.
And like I didn't realize that I could use it for something other than it, like a fun hobby.
Yeah, something to just pass the time. Because at the end of the day, especially as Christians, if we have things that are there just to pass the time, then it's like, it's like, why are we doing it then?
There's not really a purpose to it. And to add to that, like when I was really young, I would write just like fun stories. And I was probably like 11. And I was like, I kind of want to like put meaning into this. And that's when I started trying to write like actual Christian fiction. And that kind of opened a whole lot of doors because at the time, like young as I was kind of experiencing writer's block in a way because I was at the point where I was kind of more aware of what I was writing and I was like, what is the point of this? And then that's when I started trying to write Christian fiction.
You were having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, at age 11.
Yeah.
Wait, does that mean 11 was the middle of my life?
Oh, wait, hold up. You have 5 years?
Less than that, because I turned 18 in, like, less than a month.
Well, yeah, of course, because, you know, the kidnap thing.
Yeah.
Hey, we're not referencing that.
4 years.
You have 4 years left. Okay, well, let's make them some good 4 years.
Yep.
But anyway, so that's a big thing. Like for me, I have always liked photography and video. I've even been like second shooter to my sister multiple times. She has a photography business. And then one day I'm just like, but like what am I going to do? In fact, for a large amount of my life, I was more interested in the field that Jonathan's in right now, like IT.
Funny, because when I was younger, I was interested in photography and
You
videography.
were.
Oh.
We swapped.
That's really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. I was like, that's going to be my career.
Mm-hmm.
Until
You remember, Grace?
Yes.
I was going to be a movie director.
Yeah, you were going to be a movie director.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting how like God like does that. Where like something you never thought you were going to be doing, you're now doing it no matter what happens.
Because I didn't think I was going to be I didn't even have an idea of being like movie director and pursuing that until like very recently, the past like 3 years. And,
wow.
Yeah. Because I was always interested in like acting and film and we'd make goofy videos, but I never made the connection between I can do this and, I can actually use this to make a living for God.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I actually got out of IT because I realized how boring it was.
I'm actually trying to get out of it too, so.
Yeah. I was like, wait, because then my dad got a corporate job is what happened.
Oh.
And he had to deal with IT. And half the time IT is like, well, it's not in the book. I can't help you. I'm like.
See, this is how little I'm wired like that. Is Jonathan tried to give me one programming lesson when I was like, how old was I?
Like
10.
Too young.
I was like 10,
Because that's when I got into it.
He tried to give me one lesson, and I was, like, tuned out within, like, 5 minutes. Like, I was done. I was like, yeah pretty sure I'm not going to go into that line of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the same thing with Joy.
But here's why I liked it. And it's actually a creative reason. I could type text and push a button, and all of a sudden, it was like magic. You got something on the screen.
That's true.
It kind of is a form of creativity.
It very much is. If you look at, you're making a website.
Yeah, my brother is the same way. He's only, like, 11 right now?
Mm-hmm.
But he's already, like, way better at programming than me.
Yeah.
I took Java classes and HTML, but he's far surpassed me. And he learns, like, new languages, like, every other month.
And when you get into mathematics and computer, that's when... Because you think, computers, math... it's the opposite of creativity.
Yeah.
But you actually get into it and you get computer graphics.
Yeah.
And then you get
See, I don't
animation.
like math either, so that's
definitely
not the right...
But then you got CGI and, Pixar,
That's
so
true.
It's
so much
interesting.
math
In
goes
other
into
words,
stuff like that.
so you're going to build the programs that I'm going to use.
Basically.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm heading towards a more web design thing.
Yeah.
No.
Which that's a very practical skill to have.
Yeah.
But see, even with web design, there's creativity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to design.
Yeah.
It's in the name.
And so, I don't think everyone has to use their creativity as a ministry. Some people, they're like, that's just a thing. The main part of their personality doesn't lean towards creativity, and maybe they want to do creativity a little bit, and then mostly focus on their job and having a steady living and giving to help the church or a missionary.
Yeah.
Or, there's all sorts of different things. But for those of you, which there are many, who want to use your creativity for God, because I think that's the best way to use your creativity, how do we do it? What are some practical steps forward we can take to using our creativity for God?
So, I actually have I made a video and a blog post, or I don't know if I made a blog post, but I made a video about it from like a writing perspective, but I think a lot of it can apply to like no matter what creative outlet you have. And I had 3 main steps, and that was read, research, and write. So reading is, well, kind of, unless you spell it.
I know.
But basically, reading is studying the masters as far as like what they did. So like for filmmaking, you would watch great films.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Nolan, you just got exposed to him.
I got exposed to that.
She just watched
I got
Batman Begins.
I think we mentioned this last time
Did we?
too. Last podcast.
We did, but I got my little sister say Batman is her favorite movie.
It's the best movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. That is a victory.
And I'm not like a tomboy or anything.
You're like Pride and Prejudice, Anne of Green Gables, Sound of Music girl. Yeah.
Yes, I'm definitely in.
Batman Begins.
It's the best movie I've ever seen. Watch. So like if you're into filmmaking, watch the greats. If you're into writing, read the greats. That's one of the reasons I love classics, which is why I read Jane Austen. Is because of that reason.
Yeah.
So study what other people did and figure out what works for them. And then the nice thing about creativity is you can kind of put your own spin on it. So you don't want to like as a writer, I don't want to imitate Charles Dickens.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to, study him well enough that I know what he did and what works for him. But at some point, you also have to figure out what works for yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because creativity is like that. It's not all the same for one person. Even if you're in the same line of work, it's not all the same for one person.
Well, yeah, and I would probably relate it to, I did a bunch of martial arts, and it's surprising how similar martial arts and creativity are. When you're really looking, because one thing is, so we have a lesson book, so we have specific things. He says, well, while you're still, learning, you want to keep to these lessons. You want to keep, so you're learning the principles, the foundations, especially if you're a white belt, a yellow belt, a green belt. You want, because those are the first 3. You want to keep to the book. And then as you progress, as you get better, then you can start going, well, how would I do it for myself? How would I make this more effective for me?
So we actually have a saying in writing that says, know all the rules and then break them.
I love that.
So you have to get familiar with stuff first. You
Yeah.
can't just start out with something like writing or something similar to that, and you can't just be like, well, I'm just going to do whatever I want. First, you need to do, your research first, and you need to learn all about it. But after that is when you start figuring out like what works for you. So for a lot of my writing life, I was like kind of doing what I wanted, and then I started doing the research about plots, and I actually figured out that actually works for me.
Yeah.
And it really enhanced my writing. Now, some of the stuff that I learned, I don't actually use. And I decided to break that rule or whatever. But I found some things that worked for me.
Yeah, that was a big thing. So like my sister, she's written multiple like plays and scripts. She more focuses on that. She doesn't do as much like book writing, but it's plays, scripts, and she's written I think 2 movies so far, like short films. And the second movie she wrote, I helped her with because she's better at script writing than I probably ever will be. But what I do know is plot and story. And that's something she'd never known. She's mostly, you said pantser?
Yes.
She's mostly been a pantser. And so she's never really... So I showed her a video talking about the 3X story structure, which is the stripped down foundation for most movies. And together we actually put some plot into a really good story she had, which made it way better. And so I 100% agree with that, is that before you can break the rules, though, you have to know the rules.
You have to know them.
Yeah.
Because then you know whether you are... Otherwise, you don't know whether you're improving or getting worse. You don't know, like, what does this decision do?
See, because I thought for the longest time that I was a pantser. Which, if you don't know, that's writing by the seat of your pants. Which is basically you just wing it, you sit down, and you write. For the longest time, that's what I thought, because that's all I ever tried to do. And that's all I ever knew. And so, especially for me, just because of my personality, I like to stick with things I know about. But then Jonathan actually got me into plots, and then I realized that plots could actually enhance my writing. So it was all you. And now I'm a lot more of a plotter.
Yeah.
But I never would have known that if I hadn't explored it. Now, if I explored it and I was like, because I have one friend who I've kind of helped with writing, and I've taught her some of this stuff about plots. And she's like, yeah, I just don't think that's for me. And she's a great writer. She's kind of a beginner writer, but she's a great writer, and it works for her. And so I'm like, that's great that works for you. But I would just say, just know what you're not doing first before you like not do it almost, and know just know like why you're making that decision.
That's the same thing. I think even with, you should know why you do what you do. That's a big thing. It's a thing with Christianity, it's a thing with martial arts, it's a thing with creativity. Is to be able to become better at something, you need to know why you're doing it.
And it's why you need knowledge before wisdom.
Right.
You can't expect to have wisdom before knowledge. Because if you think of it, it's kind of the same way. Knowledge is you know the rules, you know the principles. And then wisdom is weighing the options, knowing why, applying them.
Yeah. So, with that, then, so first, how to improve.
Right.
Yeah.
Get your foundation. And then from there, what are some ways, maybe to distribute? Like, what are some avenues that you've tried? Maybe ones that worked, the ones that didn't work, as far as trying to put your creativity out there.
So the first thing I would say is make sure you love it, because even if you get because you can get a lot of negative feedback at first. So you have to know whether you like it, because if you hate it and everybody's like making you miserable, then like there's no point in doing it.
No.
If you're miserable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing is figure out if you like it or not too, because you shouldn't be doing something that you're not passionate about, because otherwise there's no heart in it really.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, and if people will see if you're passionate about something. Like if someone talks to me about something that they're very passionate about, and I can see that they're passionate about it, it makes me passionate about it, even though I just heard about it. So it's kind of contagious. So people can see if you're passionate or not about it. And that can actually be a very good, almost like advertiser. It's like free marketing.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about it, because you're going to talk about it if you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I could tell you're very passionate about writing.
Because I bring it up all the time.
You bring it up all the time. And, like, that's not my thing. I'm not a writer. But we talk about it quite a lot. Because I love talking about it. Because, I understand enough to talk about it with you.
Well, that's actually the first I heard about the Dvorachecks. Well, first I just heard about you. You're just some family in the ether that didn't matter at all. Because because I didn't know nothing about it.
To you.
Just like,
that didn't matter at all.
It didn't matter at all to me,
My
actually.
life is a lie.
That's not what I meant.
We don't matter, Grace. We don't matter.
The family curse.
It's a family curse. You don't matter. That's a horrible curse to have. That's a very general curse, too. But just someone I had no clue about. And then my Uncle Phil messaged me on Messenger with a link to your YouTube channel, actually.
Huh.
Yeah, that's how this all got started.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, because he's like, here's another godly YouTuber that's like, that's wanting to be like, have a creative, because we have kind of the same idea with our YouTube channels.
Yes.
And so he's like, yeah, here's another godly YouTuber. I was like, huh, interesting. And then I watched some of your videos, and that's how I became familiar. And then, so actually, my Uncle Phil's the reason I moved here then. Indirectly. Because you remember the reason...
Because you came
because I wanted to ask if you wanted to collaborate on this
podcast.
Which,
so this podcast is the reason...
6 months later.
This podcast is the culmination of 6 months. No, more than that, even.
So, like, me being here, too, is like... At long last, like that.
At long last.
Yep.
You were, in fact, it was...
It took me being the co-host.
Yes.
It was all part of your plan.
It was...
Because, like, I honestly never really liked the idea of a podcast in general. Until, like, I actually, like, knew people who did it.
Most podcasts I don't like.
Because...
Yeah.
There's a lot. Like, have you seen clips from the Whatever podcast?
Oh, my word.
That's absolutely
your IQ lowers like every minute you watch it.
Well, a lot of people just kind of sit around and insult people. Like,
that's what the Whatever podcast is. Mm-hmm. It's guys insulting girls.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's it. That's a whole podcast.
It's like the red pill guys installing like the leftist girls.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they don't do anything. They don't actually prove anything. They don't actually improve anything. They just insult girls.
That's just...
It's actually kind of pathetic.
It is.
It's like super... And there's a lot of podcasts like that. Or they're just like talking and goofing around.
Well, they have like a target... You're supposed to have a target audience. But they have like a target like... In general, like as in like somebody they're against. Like...
Oh, target enemy.
So their target audience...
Is
like
hateful people.
People who hate what they hate almost. Instead of people who like what they like.
That's a big thing I want to not do.
I mean, that's talk
radio.
Okay,
I'm okay with you hating the Whatever podcast. That's fine.
Well, I guess we are
other
kind
than
of
that,
bashing them right now.
We are. But other than that, no, we don't want hateful people on our podcast listening on it, because we're, according to the Bible, we're supposed to be building each other up.
Right.
And that's again what creativity is part of.
Right.
But so it's weird because then I went to the church because I wanted to ask to collaborate because I was gonna go to Wildwood.
And then you wanted to go to our church.
Then I went there Sunday. I was considering only going there for Sunday school, and then I stayed for Sunday morning because I was like, oh wow, I like the way your dad preaches, and then I was like, I feel like I could really help at this church. And here I am.
Yeah, wow, that's just so weird.
It's so bizarre. It was just one message from my uncle that started the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow. I never put that together.
So Grace is the one to blame.
Grace.
I'm the reason you're all here now. I have gathered you all together.
You're the kidnapper.
Oh!
You're the reason we're here.
Yep, plot twist.
You moved me to a different house.
Half hour, midpoint.
Midpoint.
Now you guys have to switch from reaction
You guys
to
did that
action.
without meaning to.
What are you going to do about this?
Grace, you didn't even mean to. You're such a writer.
And I even said at the beginning, what a great hook this is.
Yeah, you did. So what's the low point?
Literally a short story.
Point?
The low point we'll have to see.
The low point is when I threaten you all with death.
Oh no.
Oh, so it goes from the kidnapper to the kidnappee.
You guys talked about drugging my drink.
Oh, wait a minute.
What?
No wonder she didn't want a latte.
When you get to the bottom of the latte. Oh wait, you already.
Why is it neon green?
No, you have to wait another 15 minutes to get there.
The colors.
Not at the right
It takes
point.
15 minutes to set in, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I've timed it all perfectly.
Yeah.
It's a whole arc.
Oh,
a villain arc.
Wait, so it's your villain arc now, not mine. Oh, that's the other plot twist.
So she is the real villain.
This is your hero arc.
Oh.
Except it will fail.
That's what they all say.
Yeah.
That's true. Now I need to start monologuing.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You caught me monologuing. You sly dog. We should get back on.
Yes.
Because, okay,
anyway.
So, avenues you used.
Like, what do you, like, get
So
your
when you're finally
creativity
like,
out there.
oh wow, I want to be creative and be creative for Christ and help people with being creative for Christ. What are some actual things you did?
To kind of help other people and not just write for myself, you say?
Yeah, and how did you put your creativity out there?
Okay, so originally I wanted to get social media accounts because I wanted to be self-published. So it wasn't even for helping other people.
Okay.
It was actually, and this is before I started it because I wanted to get social media for a long time. Is because I had a author who mentored me, and she said if you're self-published, you have to have a platform. So that's when I started. I wanted to start a blog, and I got the idea to start my blog, and then later I ended up starting a YouTube channel, and then I got Instagram and Facebook. And so originally, way back, like a couple years ago, that was my intention, was to kind of use it as my platform to get an audience so that I could have readers for my books. But when it came time, so I actually was in a writing club, and I did like an email series called Writing Tips, and I kind of like wrote like about like how to write from a Christian perspective.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, this isn't all about just like me getting my readers and like viewers and stuff. This is about also helping other people and kind of all of us like growing together.
Yeah.
And so then by the time I started my blog, that was my goal, is to, and because around that time I started noticing a huge lack in Christian authors like teaching about how to write Christian.
Okay.
Because the website that I follow that actually taught me a lot about writing that I know right now, she, like I think I said in the last podcast, like she claims to be a Christian, but she doesn't really bring it into her writing like a whole lot. And there are readers on there who are Christians. And so one time I was scrolling the comments and I came across this comment where this lady was like, I noticed that you said you were a Christian, and I am too, and I'm just wondering if you have any advice on like how to like put that into your writing. And I was like, I'm interested to see what she says about this, like how she responds to this. And she responded like so vaguely, and she was like, well, just do whatever makes you happy and do whatever you feel like doing. And I was like, okay, that's it. And I was like, and I replied to her, and I was like, well, actually, I've been researching this for a while, kind of independently, and this is kind of some of the conclusions I've come to about this. And then doing that was like, I was like, wow, that really like was fun to do. And I had a couple other friends approach me and like ask me the same question, like, how do you write Christian? Because they wanted to get into writing. And I'm like, wait, like I actually have some answers to this. And like there isn't very much I can point to, like, oh, go to so-and-so because they'll teach you about this. There wasn't very much of that I could just say, they'll teach you how to write Christian. And I was like, that's kind of a need. So by the time I started my blog, that was my goal, is to, and I still do want to, attract readers for when I do publish, but now it's more about helping other people and other writers also write Christian.
I love that. That was it was a similar thing for me. I've always wanted to do film, and then I think I covered this partially in the last podcast. Is then I had some friends that would do a film for camp every year, based around the theme of camp, and they would it was always had a Christian agenda, and always had and it's crazy. Them, they had not much of a budget. I mean, their dad had a good amount of money, so sometimes you'd be able to help with certain sets or stuff. But they'd just do it at their church, or they'd do it at their dad's work. We were able to use his office once, and they just had some cheap cameras they'd use. But they actually did a pretty good job. It was 90% not cringy. Which is more than can be said for most Christian films.
Flip that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, oh wow, I don't need a huge budget or a film degree or to go to LA to be able to be a filmmaker, which means I could be a filmmaker if I wanted.
Right.
Mm.
And then it's so bizarre. The more I'm getting into filming and social media as well, I see so many social media influencers that come from Wisconsin. I don't even know why. You got Charlie Barron's, Daniel LaBelle. Mm-hmm. You got...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. There's been so many that come from Wisconsin. I don't even know why. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of them.
A lot of them claim to be Christian too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's some that actually even act it out.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of cool. And I'm like, okay, so this can be done, which means I can do it, and I want to do it, and it will help people. And so, and I actually, all of this came to a head when I was going through some tough stuff, and I needed to do something. I'm like, I need to do something, because otherwise I'm just wallowing, and I'm like, I gotta pick up my feet and do something. And so I started the podcast, and I was like, I'm just doing the podcast live, because I know otherwise, as you guys can tell, this one's going to be out on time. But the other past ones haven't been as much out on time. So it's a little harder, but I'm getting more of a rhythm in.
We understand.
Yeah. But I had a live podcast for the first first 2 seasons. And that was because I knew I was a procrastinator. But doing it every single week and having this rhythm of creating over and over, helping people, giving advice to people, which I love doing that. And even with the criticism I got, I just started doing it. And then I started getting people and I've had multiple people that are like, wow, that really helped me. Or, hey, I'm really glad you're doing this. It's like, hey, I watch all your episodes. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is bizarre. And I'm like, okay, I can't stop this because people are actually enjoying this. Mm-hmm. People are actually getting something. I'm able to share God's word with people. This can't stop. So then I'm like, okay, I got to start doing stuff on Instagram. And lately, I've fallen back. I apologize for that. I'm getting back into the rhythm. But ever since then, I'm like, I got to do this. Mm-hmm. And then I also was the head director and co-producer of the latest film, because all the people that normally do it for camp, one of them was super busy. The other one, she got 2 foster kids, so she had no time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it was just me and my sister, Ruth. Mm-hmm. We basically coordinated the whole thing, and I was like, and it was stressful, and it was difficult, and it did not turn out the way I wanted it. But I was like, I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. There's certain parts that were making me want to just go crazy. But I still was like, I can't not create.
Yeah.
So ever since then I'm like, but then I have a very hardworking father, so he taught me a lot of practical skills. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm not just gonna throw everything away and just go to film school and
Right.
and you'll be a star. I'm like, let's be realistic about this. So I'm slowly building it up, and that goes doing YouTube, doing Instagram, getting a following, and then eventually making it bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what I am kind of doing with my social media accounts too, because of that reason. Because if I publish a book and no one knows about it, then like there's no point.
Yeah, exactly.
In doing that, because like no one's gonna buy it. You have to have people ready to buy it too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. And so if you have creativity and you want to do it, I think some of the steps is first, like you were saying, build your skills.
Mm-hmm.
So now, thanks to the internet, there is like 100 videos for almost any skill you want to build.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere from fixing cars to operating a camera drone, to writing a novel, to like, no matter what it is, there is something. And you might have to, if there's not like especially when it comes to like creative, entertaining, storytelling, or like production, sometimes there's not a lot of Christian resources, so you need to weed it out a little bit, and you need to kind of spit out the bones.
Yep.
In certain areas. So especially if you're one of the first Christians in that industry, like film industry, it's like the Kendrick brothers, Pure Flix, and like that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as Christian filmmakers. So there's a lot of my learning that has been from secular people but I just, you spit out the bones and you get what you can. And so first, I think step one is just learning, and the 50-50 rule that I learned this, and I'm like, this has to be, I need to do it, because I was the type, I would watch tons of videos about camera angles, about how to get your shots, how to edit. I'd watch all these videos, and then I wouldn't video anything.
Yep.
And this is something you can fall into. So the 50-50 rule is you spend 50% of your time researching it, reading it, consuming it, learning about it, and then you spend 50% of your time creating.
And that kind of, what I was saying before, read, research, write. At some point, you have to just stop kind of intaking knowledge, and you have to put it to use. Because if you never put it to use, number one, you're never going to know whether you actually want to do it. Because if you never do it, and then all of a sudden you go to college for it,
you romanticize it,
and then you put all this money into it, and then you get into it, and you're like, oh wait, I actually don't want to do this. Like, this is actually not like what I'm made for. Then it's like, oh, whoops, you just put like a whole bunch of money behind that and a whole bunch of time studying,
Yes.
At some point you need to put it into practice.
And you mentioned, watch videos and all that, but if you can, find a mentor. Because
if you can. That will help you so much.
Yeah.
So far, I haven't really found one.
Yeah, it's kind of become the mentor.
Yeah.
I've become the mentor for some people, but if you can find a mentor, that will help you so much.
Because you skip ahead so much. It's just a matter of time. If you're out by yourself, where you'll get to the point, but it speeds up the process.
Well, they can show you where they failed, so you can avoid making the same exact mistakes.
Yeah, that's something where like even the people that I took over film from, they were basically everywhere from writing to post-production. They're all pantsers basically. They just started like making funny skits with themselves. And then I think it was really when we joined that it leveled up, because we wanted to like push it further, because me, my sister, my brother-in-law, we're all very well. My brother-in-law, it's so weird. Andrew, he's like almost a perfect co-director, because he's not very creative, but he knows how to execute.
Yes.
So I'm actually gonna be. He wants to learn some photography already, and so he'll learn angles and stuff. And then I'll have him as one of my DPs. I'll probably have Steven as a DP too. Because then if I'm like, hey, I want it to look like this, I want to have it swinging, he knows exactly how to do it.
Yeah, and that's really helpful too, is not just having mentors. Because I've had one for a while, but then that kind of fell through. And then, I met with an author a while ago, but that was just like one meeting.
Yeah.
But mostly what I've had is a lot of peers who are skilled in areas that I'm not.
Yes.
And so they catch things. Like, I have one friend whose mom was an English teacher, so she catches all sorts of grammar and spelling and whatever.
Yeah.
She catches all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my one friend who's a pantser. I kind of help her keep her story kind of
Together.
seamless and together.
Yeah.
And she helps me a lot by, like, noticing, like, different details, because I sometimes tend to zoom out more.
Yeah.
Your big picture.
Yeah,
person,
I tend to look at the big picture and how it all fits together, and I sometimes forget about, like, the individual scenes. Those have to be good too.
Yeah.
And so she'll catch those. So it's also really good to have peers around you who you can help, and then they can help you.
Yeah, I know, like, Mr. Beast, he once did an interview with some people, and he said that there was, like, a period of time where he had, like, I think 5 people, and they met every day and just researched, talked about, like, all these different YouTubers, and then also would criticize each other's work.
Like, down to the thumbnail. Like,
Yeah, down to the thumb. Like, they were brutally honest with each other, just like, hey, this is wrong. I hate this part. Like, you need to change this. Like, this video was really boring because of how you started it. And they just would bounce off each other. And that's one of the biggest reasons why now Mr. Beast has over 100 million subscribers, is because he took a lot of time to go from, some kid that was just recording videos with his best friend to someone that has full-scale production.
Yeah, and that kind of brings to mind a concept of creativity that we don't also think of, and that's repetition. A lot of times, more of the creative type, they're more, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. But if you have repetition, you start, the more iterations you have, the more you get better, the more you get better.
Yeah.
And, you think of it as more of a logic-based, trait, but it applies to creativity a lot.
That's why there's a bunch of filmmakers that have been really, they're able to hone their craft by doing stuff like wedding filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because then you're doing the same thing over and over, and you catch things.
Yes. Yeah.
You get so good at it.
Yeah.
And you have to... Oh, what was I going to say now? I
Sorry.
just completely
I
forgot what I was going to
interrupted
say.
Repetition, yeah.
I forget what
Maybe
I was
it'll
going to
come
say
to
about
you.
that, but
Yeah.
But yeah.
that's okay.
You want to hone your craft, and then with distribution, I have a saying that I say, and you can comment on this, what you think about it, which is, I'm never going to change the message, but I'm okay with changing the packaging.
Yes.
So making something really exciting, because there's a lot of times where like they'll want everything to be all just like this very solemn, just, hello, we are here to talk about the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm sorry, it's just super boring. And there's not a lot of people that are going to watch that or listen to it. And so I like the idea of packaging it in a way that is relevant
Without compromising.
Without compromising.
Yep.
So I don't, with Christian media, you never compromise the message.
Well, and I think that comes back to what we were talking about in part 1, where we were saying that there's 2 types of, like, Christian, like, fiction.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to the fact that one part they compromise the message.
Yeah.
For the sake of making it all
Palatable.
Yeah, and flashy and showy and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas the other side, they think that just because they have the message right, that they don't have to worry about anything else, and they don't have to. They don't have to take the time and like do the research and do the work. That just because they're right, that people should listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's not. You need to have both.
I've even
You have to
seen
have the right
that,
message, but you also do need to package it right.
It goes with theology too. It goes with a lot of things actually.
Yeah, I've even seen it in like there was a church that I was familiar with where they basically stripped away everything. There was no Sunday school. There was no official nursery. There was they stopped doing specials. They literally cut everything out.
Wow.
It was only singing and preaching. It was to that point, and they didn't even have any programs. They had one VBS, but the last VBS they had was super boring because they were like, well, they basically turned it into like just 5 days of preaching.
Yeah.
They had almost zero
you have
activities.
to-
And so, but they believed because they were right that should be able to stand on its own. But like, Jesus did tons of miracles to prove what
parables.
he said. He told parables. He used stories. He packaged up the gospel in multiple different ways.
Well, because everyone is wired differently, so everyone is going to understand something, and that's one of the reasons that Jesus told parables is from different angles. So the people who wanted to know the truth, they would understand it, and so he presented the gospel in different ways.
Yeah.
And I mean, he would tell multiple parables about the same subject, about the same exact message, but some people wouldn't understand one parable, but maybe they would understand another.
Yeah, the 100 sheep and the 10 coins and the 2 sons.
Yep.
It was from 2 different perspectives. The shepherd's perspective, the man that was a shepherd, the woman that was a stay-at-home woman that was apparently just married, because that's the tradition of the day. And then it was the father that had sons. And it was like he was relating it to different people.
So
but he didn't compromise the message.
Yep.
Jesus had a target audience, you could say.
Yeah.
And he presented his message, so you notice who he's talking to, he actually would change the way he spoke. For the Pharisees, he knew that to challenge them and to get at their heart, he had to be very firm with them.
Yeah, and
whereas
blunt.
with the disciples, he was very patient and gentle with them.
Yep.
Because they just didn't get it sometimes.
Yeah.
But he knew that their heart and their vision was there.
Yeah.
And with the people, he tried to appeal to, because they were very like down to earth. And so he tried to appeal to them with parables and with miracles and that sort of thing.
Relating it to their daily life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I often try to find the most practical topics to talk about. It's because it's like, oh, I see. So the Bible just kind of like talks about my daily life and how to live better every day, not just about how to be a better church member.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's people always divide, the sacred and the secular, but everything in your life, because when you become a Christian, Jesus lives inside of you. The Holy Spirit is inside of you. So you are sacred, therefore.
Yeah.
Your body is a temple.
Yeah.
Everything
And
you
so
do should be sacred.
wherever you are, it is
sacred.
That activity, whatever you're doing, it's sacred. So that's every area of your life, because you are always where you are. So
Hanging out with friends is sacred.
Yep.
Going to Culver's is sacred. Like, every single thing you do, it's not just, oh, we're done with church, now we're going to be sacred. Now we're done being sacred. No, it's just, you never stop.
Yeah.
Which is also why whenever you're like, oh, well, I need to act good because I'm at church, I'm like, no, that's not how it's supposed to work.
Which that kind of leads back to creativity, because people kind of separate that because they think that the truth is going to confine their creativity. And
yes.
what I would say to that is creativity is good, but you always need a channel for it.
Yep.
You always need a channel. You always need to have some sort of guideline, because no matter how, if you're the most creative person on earth, if you have no boundaries or anything, then, I mean, we see what happens in the Bible. I actually did a study once on imagination. You see what happened in the Bible. Almost every time the word imagination is used, it's not good.
Yep.
And it's because they didn't have any concept of boundaries. It was like, well, we're just going to do what we feel like, and just creativity, and just go out, whatever.
Follow your heart.
Yeah,
right
follow
in
your
their
heart,
own eyes.
and that kind of thing. So you have to have some kind of channel and some kind of guideline for it. You can't just kind of wing it and just, spit out whatever you want to say.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing to just remember is just because you want to be creative doesn't mean, the truth will never tamper with your creativity. It will enhance it.
Mm-hmm.
And a creative packaging will never destroy the truth. It will only help it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's about having that balance between not compromising the truth, because that's something you never want to do.
Right.
But also, you want to have it in a way that actually is, like, enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because if nobody enjoys it, like, why in the world would they watch it?
Like, some people almost try to make things, like, almost boring because they're like, well, if they don't enjoy it, then they don't like the truth. You know, like,
Yeah.
Here's
they're
the
very
thing,
much
though.
like, well, it's the truth. They should enjoy it.
Here's the thing,
Yeah.
though. That's just lazy. That's all
It is.
Yeah.
And because you are presenting a package.
Mm-hmm.
You are presenting a package, obviously, because people are hearing it.
Yeah.
So you're already doing that. Nobody is completely objective.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's not...
God has a rebuttal to that. The King James Bible is the best-selling book in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And you see that with, like, all sorts of Christian industries where they're just plain lazy about it.
mm-hmm.
And the thing is the really sad thing is a lot of these books and movies that I see, Christian books and movies, they have such potential, and that makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Some of my least favorite books and movies are not because of it's not really because of the creativity, it's because they really had no channel or guideline, they had no direction
Yeah.
towards what they were going for. Because there's a lot of books and movies that have so much potential and they have such good ideas, and these people are so creative, but they didn't put the work in to actually
Yeah, exactly.
create guidelines and, like, point it actually to, like, one singular truth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so true. So if you are really creative and you watch the last episode and you're like, yeah, that's me. I want to use my creativity. Focus on building your skills, which means researching, reading, or watching, depending, or seeing other people paint, whatever your skill is. Consume, research, and then create.
Yep.
But
Yes.
make sure you don't just get stuck in research. Just sometimes, and your first stuff is going to be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
My first podcasts, not great. I don't want you guys watching them.
yeah, I mean, I have
It's everybody, though.
stories
Yeah.
that, like, are locked away so deep
Yep.
that, like, no one is going to ever read those.
Yeah, my
But,
first...
like, I don't delete them either, because, like, that was me back then. That
Yeah.
was where I was at.
It goes back to
So
repetition.
it's not really anything to necessarily be ashamed of,
No.
even though that's not me now, so that's why I don't want people reading it.
Yeah. And, like, my videos, I don't think... There was only one video I've ever deleted from my channel. And that's not on this channel. This is a podcast channel. On my other one, Audio Unicorn Productions, which I'm going to start posting to. There was one where I had a vlog, and it just didn't turn out at all. And I looked at it, I'm like, nope. And so I did delete that one.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I keep even the dumbest stuff. Because it's like...
I think I put my first video on... I didn't delete it. I think I put it on private. But it was like a welcome to my channel thing, and I, like, updated it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was, like, not current to, like, what I was.
Yeah,
And,
I
like,
need
also,
to
I was like, I
update
don't
mine.
like my camera presence in that, so...
Yeah, once we change the name.
Yeah. But yeah, so do that, and then don't compromise the truth for your creativity, but also don't think that the truth is just saying the words of the truth is gonna is enough, because then that's just being lazy. It's like, I can just read this script and magically everything will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Put some effort into it.
Well, if you think about it, God did that a lot in the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have created everything on one day, but he spread it out over 6 days of creation. And, he could have made just one species of animal, just a few. But he made so many because he didn't just settle for, well, I'm God, so, like, what I create and what I say goes. And, like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
He actually, like, made a variety of things.
Yeah, he
So-
actually he put some work into it. He
Yeah.
put some effort into it,
Yeah.
and he because now we can enjoy it. So it's like awesome.
Mhm.
But it's just so put some effort into it.
Yeah.
And especially as Christians, like she said, and I 100% agree with it. Christian media should be the best media.
Yes.
And so we should strive to be more talented than everyone else, to have better scripts, to have better books, to have better videos, to have better movies than anyone else. And like one of my inspirations, even though they don't get everything right, the Kendrick brothers, they actually proved that's possible.
That was their goal.
Yeah.
Is to do that. Is to create good quality Christian
Yeah.
movies.
And in every single one of their films, I mean, some of them had, we the plot of, Facing the Giants, that wasn't great. But
This is just Facing the Giants bash.
but to be honest, we're all huge fans of the Kendrick brothers because they did that. And of course that was only their second film.
Yeah.
So for their second film,
improve with
that was
every
pretty
one.
good.
And they had a third film after
Yeah,
that.
and
too.
they kept going
They-
and they had better ones.
I think their third film, Fireproof, that was one of their best.
Yeah.
In my
So-
opinion, it is their best.
And
Okay.
so that's huge. Where it's just like they were just three Christian brothers that wanted to do film, and they did it. And so it's like you don't need to just go to LA and join a studio. You can do it as a Christian, making films that actually are good.
And they were a church. The first movie, they just got some
It
people
was
from their church.
people from-
Yep.
And that brings us to a point is that don't just try to do it alone.
Yes.
Don't try to be a
Yes.
lone ranger.
You can't.
Because like we were talking about before, getting advice from your peers and from mentors, but also work together with people because there are so many people out there that are skilled in things that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you all come together, and a lot of times Christians try to do that, is they try to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
But with something like you're into filmmaking, like writing is a little bit more of a lone project.
Yeah.
You
Slightly
get
more
people,
independent.
you get people to edit it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like for filmmaking, you need people of all sorts of skills,
Mm-hmm.
and you need everybody to come together.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that the Kendrick brothers did is they took people even from their church that had different gifts, and they said, "Hey, you can act. Can you do this? You can cook meals. Can you cook meals for us on set?" And they brought everybody together with their skills and their creativity. It was all different kinds of creativity, but it was all like important.
Yeah, that's huge. And so also just don't do it alone. It's
Yeah.
never, it really just won't work out if you do it alone. You will just fizzle out and you'll burn out and you'll be done. And that's a huge push of mine is I try to get people together.
Yeah.
I have people that are writing for me. I have people that are doing video for me, doing audio for me. I'm basically just the director. I have the main vision. And then I find people that are smarter and more talented than me to do all of the work that I don't know how to do.
Right. And admit when you don't know how to do something.
Yes,
too.
be humble about
Because
that.
you don't know how to do everything.
Yeah.
And find someone who does.
It's the only way you're gonna get better is if you
Yeah.
admit that
Yeah.
you're wrong at stuff. 'Cause-
Yeah, and even if it's
Well,
something you
and
need
when
to-
you're starting out at something, expect to fail
Yeah.
a lot.
Yes.
And it goes back to the repetition thing. You gotta have a ton of iterations before you even get close to being good.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people underestimate how much you have to do something before you become excellent at it.
Which is why it's important that you're passionate about it.
Yes.
Because if you're not,
You're gonna
you're
stop.
just gonna, no matter how
Yeah.
much discipline you have,
Mhm.
either you're just gonna keep dragging along, but eventually it's just gonna all fizzle
Yeah.
out.
I saw a YouTuber, he did a very honest advice for people doing YouTube. He goes, if you are watching this video and going, I really want to start YouTube, but I just don't have the equipment, he says, then quit.
Yep.
He says, I know you have a smartphone. You're watching this right now. He's
Yeah.
like, you can do it with that. And you have the equipment then. He's like, so then start with that. And if you don't, then just don't. Don't even get started because you never will. And that's the last thing is that just do it. Okay? Like, I did not start with this. I did not start with a camera. I used my sister's old iPhone 8 that she didn't use anymore. and I had a little phone clamp that my dad didn't need, that came with something and he didn't need it, and a old tripod, which now that tripod's holding up the diffuser for my light, and I just got some really dirt cheap USB mics.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I started, and that's so just start with whatever you have. Actually, no, my first podcast was just with a lapel mic. That's right. That was an audio only.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't wait. Just go do it. If you want to write, just write. If it's garbage, fine.
Because when you start, no one's gonna really
Trust
watch
me,
it except your mom.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, like my most faithful viewers are my siblings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, because you think about, I'm never gonna be like so and so. Trust me, they have things stored away so deep that you're never gonna see it. But they have their mistakes and their failures, maybe even worse than you do. So.
I love there was on a talk show, Ed Sheeran was there, and people always say like Ed Sheeran has this natural talent. Now I don't agree with his music, but it makes a great point. He goes, okay, well here's a recording of me when he was like 15.
To do that.
It was like when he was 15,
Yeah.
and it was him playing guitar and singing, and it was horrible. His voice sounded disgusting. His guitar playing was mid at best.
Wow.
Like he was like literally his voice was cracking back and forth because he was in the wrong octave. Like he sounded really, really bad. And now he's like has multiple like platinum records and a ton of awards and like loved everywhere. And so that is still applicable to Christians. We can do that. But you're gonna start out bad, but you just gotta keep going.
Yeah, and there's a principle that I take to creativity and a lot of things goes back to our first part. Start with why. Start with the purpose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you're not grounded in anything, you're gonna fizzle out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then once you start with the why, like why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? What's the purpose of this? Then you move on to the how. And then that's where you can get practical.
Which that's why, as we were saying, Christian, whatever should be the best. In your genre, the Christians should be the best. Christian writers should be the best writers out there because our purpose is not going to die out.
Right.
So if you start with that, then, whoever is, trying to get a lot of money from it and then they are going to eventually stop doing it. Or, they're trying to get fame and it doesn't take off right away. Then they're going to stop doing it. But we're not ever going to stop having our purpose. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why this is part 2 of 2. So if you're like, well, I know how, but I want to know why, watch the first part. But we got to finish. We're just a bit over time. And is there anything you guys are thankful for? What are you guys thankful for this week? Because we didn't do that on the last podcast.
We didn't.
So.
yeah, it is Thanksgiving tomorrow.
You know what?
It is Thanksgiving.
It is Thanksgiving. Yeah. I am really thankful for the author of creativity, God. And you just look around at how creative God is.
Yeah.
And
the sunset.
The sunset today was. I pulled off the side of the road and just took pictures because I'm like, I gotta. It's so nice.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, I got off of exit on 41. I'm like, I've got to take some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the creativity of God and biggest inspiration I think, and you two could probably attest to that. To anything creative I do is definitely God.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
There's so many, when you research the stories of the Bible, the amount of creativity in there.
Amazing.
Well, and in creation itself, look at the incredible detail, and you'll see patterns everywhere. It's so amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
For me, I'm thankful for these past, it's been half a year. Almost all, since May. The journey, the direction God took me. I even said it yesterday. At the Praise and Pie. It's just been...
No, Praise and Pie.
Yeah, I got it right.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I was just waiting to catch you.
I thought about it before I said it. But is that I was... Let's see here. So, just over a year ago, I was very oh, what am I doing? what am I going to do? Because the year before that is when I was finally like, I want to get serious for the Lord. And then I had a whole year of just like torture. Because I had a lot of growing to do. And I was just kind of lost. And not lost in my salvation. I knew the Lord. But I was just lost in my purpose. And then I started the podcast in November. And I was like, wow, I really want to do this. And then because of the podcast, because otherwise I wouldn't have had a YouTube channel.
You came here.
And so then I came here. Well, then I visited in May, and then I came here, and then I became really good friends with Jonathan, and that's been great. And and the trials aren't over. I've been having some tough times, but it's kind of great to see the way the Lord works. And I've just been really thankful for the direction He's taking me. And I'm very certain that it's not done yet. Yeah. I have a lot more growing to do. I have a lot more
You're never done growing until you're in heaven.
Makes it exciting, though.
It does. Because I know I'm moving forward, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
I am thankful for... I did a post on this, like, last week, I think. Like a Facebook post. But I was, like, researching, like, verses on thankfulness. And it was really interesting because in a lot of the letters in the New Testament, especially Paul's letters, he's constantly thanking God. Beginning and end of the letters, he's thanking God for his fellow believers. And that just made me realize, like, how strong the bond should be between believers, and, like, we should all just be encouraging each other. And I feel like we aren't thankful for that enough. Yeah. And so that's just made me, like, really grateful for the people in my life that, like, build me up.
Yeah.
Because we kind of take that for granted sometimes, I think.
Yeah, especially if you're in that environment. Because there's a lot of people that aren't. There's a lot of people in a lot of groups or friends groups where it's a lot of tearing each other down.
Yeah.
And so it is really nice to be in a friends group where we're building each other up. That's always nice. But yeah. All right. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think you gave a perspective that is very valuable. And who knows, we might have, though
you might see me again.
We might, because we already have a couple of ideas.
Yes, we do.
So you'll probably see her.
We're gonna see you again.
Yeah. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching. And this is our second to last podcast, right?
Yeah, already.
Wow.
Second to last
Crazy.
podcast. Wow, that is insane. And then we'll have a 1 month break in December. And then we'll be right back up in January.
New name, new episode, or new season.
Yeah, probably the same set because we actually found something that works.
This is
so probably not a new set.
Works, yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for all you faithful viewers, especially people who are still watching at an hour and 12 minutes.
Yeah.
It's probably a little different after I cut it. But thank you guys so much for watching. And what should they comment if they're the last people to listen? Should they comment?
Turkey.
There we go.
Comment turkey. And then we will know that you're one of the faithful few.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you.